So being yourself is really important. You don't want to be somebody else, right? I don't. I want to be me. And when you're in a sales conversation, it's really important to be yourself. And in this video, I'm going to explore all the do's and don'ts on how to be authentic and when it's appropriate and all that to increase your sales. So make sure you watch till the end and take that last little tidbit I give you and implement it in your life. Hey, it's Tom Jacobs here. Thanks for stopping by the channel. I love dropping these little nuggets to help you improve your sales, especially for those heart-centered salespeople out there that want to impact people's lives and ultimately grow their business. So let's dive into today's video. What does it mean to be authentic during sales? I don't know, this might seem like a little simplistic, maybe, but in reality, a lot of salespeople believe that they need to be somebody different when they go into a sales conversation. I know I did at the beginning. It was like, oh, I need to be really amped up and I got to have this gift of gab and I need to do all this stuff to get this person to buy from me. And that is completely false. Wrong answer. What you need to be is yourself. Like, who you are is what you get. And when you do that, your prospect is going to feel like they know you, like you, and ultimately will trust you. Then you're not being somebody that you're not. People can tell. You can tell when people are putting on airs. They're trying to be somebody that they're not. And when you're in a sales conversation, you absolutely cannot do that because that prospect is going to feel that incongruency and they're going to go, something's off here. And ultimately they won't buy. You know, in today's sales environment where everybody is really skeptical with what they see online, is this real? Is it fake? Is it fake news? And things like that, it's so important to bring your entire self to that sales conversation and not pretend to be somebody that you're not. Because your prospect will know if you are being something that you're not. And that means being authentic to who you are and the product or service that you offer and ultimately the problem that you solve for that prospect. When you're authentic, then that skepticism is going to be reduced to nothing and you will ultimately make the sale. One of the best ways to bring your entire self and your authentic being to a sales conversation is by telling a story, a personal story about why you do what you do. And this is going to do a couple things for you. Number one, it's going to create that connection with your prospect. They're going to get to know, like, and trust you at a fairly intimate level, and it's going to ultimately move you closer to that sale. Because nobody likes somebody that is just really bland and just sticks to the facts and is boring. And ultimately, we're selling to other humans, and so we want to make that human connection. And the best way to do that is to be yourself and tell a story about yourself that's relevant to moving that conversation forward. Okay, so you know that being authentic in sales is really important and is going to further you in making that sale. But what's the benefit for the prospect? That can be a little tricky, but actually it doesn't have to be. The prospect can now see themselves as a part of that solution to the problem that they've presented to you. So let me explain that a little bit further because this can be a little confusing. That prospect has a problem. You have the solution. When you are authentic with the way that you present your solution to their actual problem, you are making that connection with them and ultimately you'll make the sale. One of my clients and ultimately a dear friend of mine now was struggling with growing her fitness business because she wasn't really sharing a lot about why she was in the business in the first place. And so we started working on her own personal story and how to incorporate that into a sales conversation that is relevant to the actual prospect. And pretty amazing thing happened. Number one, she got really uncomfortable telling an uncomfortable story about how her childhood had created this desire in her to run and ultimately become a fitness instructor. And the second thing is, once she got over that fear of sharing that very personal story, people were attracted to her because she was so real and so raw with sharing that story, and the outcome was pretty amazing. She doubled her business in a year, primarily from public speaking, telling that personal story, and weaving that into every sales conversation that she had. And so by being authentic, she was able to double her business. Let's get real for a second. There's a lot of gurus in the sales environment out there that are talking about tactics to get people to buy your product or service. I am not subscribing to that whole philosophy. This isn't about tactics. It's not about trickery or mind games that you have to play display to get somebody to buy something from you. People will purchase when there is a desire and ultimately a burning desire within them to change and to fix a problem. It is your duty and obligation as a salesperson to be very real with them, to be authentic about your program and what it can and cannot do in terms of solving that problem. And when you are clear and authentic with your prospects, then they will feel that and ultimately make that decision to purchase your program or service. If you want to be in sales for the long term and you want to ultimately be super successful at sales, the only way to do that is with a long-term approach. And that is meaning ultimately being yourself in that sales conversation, which drives people to get to know, like, and trust you. And ultimately, you can forge great friendships and partnerships with those prospects. It's not a one and done transaction. You have to have that long-term approach because you're creating this relationship. I can remember when I was in corporate work, B2B, I was the buyer and the seller is still a dear friend of mine to this day, almost 30 years after the first transaction that we had, where I bought some software for the company I was working for. It is those type of long-term relationships that build the sales career that you want. I've put together a little guidebook on how to double your sales in 6 months. It's called the 3 Keys to Doubling Your Sales. Go figure. I'd love for you to get a copy of that. Just click the link down below and grab it today.